What's going on, everyone? My name is MGTheFuture. Today I'll be bringing you guys another exclusive tutorial for the Maschine Masters. I normally do what would producer do, but today I want to switch it up a little bit in light of the new Maschine software update 2.6.8. They released a couple new features that I just want to give you a brief overview of so you get some context on how to use it to kind of help out your workflow. And also, when I loaded this up and got the jam reconnected, since I've been using Ableton a lot, I noticed they added idea mode, which was a really big deal for me, which tells me they're going in the right direction as far as the software, which is good news, at least in my perspective, for the community, because it will allow me to port over a lot of techniques that I was doing in Ableton in the Maschine environment, especially when they start getting things like transient markers and groove templates, what have you. But until then, let's check out what they got for us right now. First things first, they have the Maschine 2.6.8 Bass Synth. Basically, this is in the family of drum synth, but is dedicated to bass. They created this, I guess, for entry-level people who don't necessarily dive into synthesis as far as Monarch and Massive goes, because that can be quite overwhelming, especially if you just want a simple sub bass for a trap beat or a nice little acid bass or something for house and EDM. So this particular synthesizer makes it really easy, and I'm going to show you some of those sounds. Another thing they ended up doing, of course, is Native Instruments now is kind of unveiling a tutorial library. I think a lot of us received that email yesterday, so you can check out some of these videos here on the site and then access the library as well to learn more specifics about these new features. And of course, Isomorphic Keyboard mode. And briefly, to kind of explain Isomorphic Keyboard mode, it's unique to Maschine Jam and its 8x8 layout, and it kind of mirrors Ableton Live, and of course it already kind of does that, but they made it so that there's different variations you can play it, which makes it way more natural in terms of chord building if you're playing key by key. Of course, you can just switch to chord mode and use one note at a time with any controller, but on the Jam, this new Isomorph mode is way more intuitive. Be sure to grab that PDF, as I mentioned earlier, which is going to give you different templates for Isomorph Keyboard based in the fourth layout. And of course, this one's in key, this one's in chromatic, and that'll make sense as you experiment with these shapes. So let's tackle that first, Isomorph Keyboard. So to access that on the controller here, assuming you're just in a regular view, or if you're in idea view, which is this new looking view, you're going to hold down Shift, hit Pad Mode, which is going to give us keyboard, and this particular interface is going to come up. And essentially, by default, you're going to notice your layout is standard. And then, of course, you could switch it back to Isomorph, which is what I'm using, and you can choose your scale like you normally would, and you can use chords if you want to. But that PDF that shows you what the positionings is, you're not going to want to use chords, so keep that off. And also, when they do it, they're using fourths, and also you have sequential. I'm using thirds, just for this example to show you what's going on. And the other thing is, whether it's in key or chromatic, if you look at the controller in chromatic mode, it only highlights the keys that are in the scale, but you can still go out of scale with the gray keys if you're in some jazz or Neptune type vibe. But if you don't want to do that, you just keep it like this. So vertical mode, and we're going to get rid of this. When you play upwards on any of these columns, each key is moving in the interval of a third. And because it's in key or it's wrapped into this particular scale, what that means for us is that we can create chords just by playing each key sequentially. So all you have to do is remember the positioning. So if you want to make bigger chords, you just add another one. You just play all four in a row. And that can happen anywhere if you're playing vertically. Now, if you just want to climb the scale, you just go horizontally. but it doesn't wrap around, so be careful, because when you go from here to here, it's a different key. It starts over, just so that this particular isomorph type workflow works. And of course, these white notes represent the root key. In my case, the root key is A. So you can do your 1, 4, 5 thing. So this is A, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You can just play chords as such. So 1, 4, and 5, and 6. Real fun, real easy. It makes a lot more sense in that particular setup. And of course, if you want to look at my particular setup to do it that way, take a look at this. Also, the other way to do it, the only other change I would recommend is horizontal, which does a polarity of that. So in horizontal mode, going up is actually climbing your scale. So starting on the white note, we're going up to A minor C major scale. So what that allows you to do is to play your chords across. And because it's going horizontally, you can make even bigger chords. So that's the only difference between direction. And of course, as you play it and check out your piano roll, it'll make a lot more sense. The next thing I want to show you guys is going to be the Bass Synth, which I have here. I'll start a new initiation for you guys. So basically, hit the plus icon. We're going to go to internal. We have sampler, drum synth, Bass Synth. And it's really simple. It only has 8 macros, which is perfect. And these particular macros map to really basic things. So here, which is shape, it shifts kind of like a wavetable morph between a sine wave to a square wave. So you have something between trap and sub bass and like that West Coast or that house or that acid house and everything in between. And of course you get different parameters like octave, if you want to change, you know, the spacing on the fly or where it is on the fly. The third slider is cutoff, which is your filter. And the next one next to that is resonance. The next one is going to be modulation amount, and then decay. And this one is drive, which is kind of like drives the filter, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Similar to the SP404. And then of course you got glide time, which this becomes automatable when you use the step sequencer view. And this whole top row allows you to punch in glide, which is pretty cool for it to have its own parameter that way. So you can like automate the sliding effect that a lot of Fruity Loops users use when they program bass and lead sounds. But glide, etc. And there's a deep preset list to get you started right here. So to find that, you just go to All Sounds, choose Bass Synth, and it has a lot of dope stuff for hip hop and trap. And a lot of the effects are added on to kind of bring the bass patches to life. And because you're in this isomorph mode, really easy to come up with some catchy bass lines. So that's that. That's the Bass Synth. That's isomorph. And the last thing I want to show you is how this idea mode works. And it comes from Ableton Live's type of point of view. And a lot of programs are adopting this. I know Fruity Loops, Bitwig, even Studio One, if I'm not mistaken, is probably all using this type of workflow. And basically what you do is go to song mode. So song mode, if you hit it once, is the old classical view we're used to seeing. You hit it again or twice in a row, you get this idea view. So let me play you what I have. Across the bottom here, I have a generic trap pattern. I have the piano in place to use isomorph mode, but I didn't record anything yet. I have a bass line that's programmed. And then I have a chop sample via Serato. And the first thing I did was set the sample to A minor so it matches my isomorph keyboard mode. Notice when I'll switch between these, different patterns are highlighted in the different scenes. So in the case of this, the difference between these two patterns is just which drum pattern I'm using. And having it in this view is pretty dope because you can create all the patterns on one idea pad for drums, like all the different drums you think you're gonna need, and then audition them one at a time. And it's similar to the old view, but what's different is how on the fly it is. So for instance, I hit 4, I create a new one, and you just highlight and activate everything you want, take away stuff, and you can name this something like switch. And what that allows you to do, being able to click things in and out on the fly and create new patterns on the fly, is so when you go back to this mode, instead of you double clicking everything in or using the controller and punching everything in one scene at a time, you just hit plus, right click, choose what it is. And if you're naming conventions like intro, verse, hook, and drop, it's really easy to find. So instead of you looking for 10 different drum patterns per group, you're just looking for your 10 total scenes, which for me is very intuitive. It's a very slight tweak, but it makes so much more sense. Now, when you run this back into your standard song mode, nothing really changed. You don't have to worry about, all right, am I using the right drum pattern for intro? Am I using the right breakdown for break? And go into that old school ugly view where you have a list of like 20 different things to choose from. So I thought that was pretty cool. I strongly recommend experimenting with this. It already, just using this for the past couple of minutes, has opened up the doors of the workflow that I wanted Maschine to have. So I'm just glad to see it. But anyway, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about these 3 features, definitely leave them in the comment box below, and I'll try to answer them the best I can. Or if you need me to show you something a little bit more hands-on, you can reach out to me on social media at MGTheFuture. Instagram's ideal because then I'll be able to respond with a video if you need that. Also, be sure to follow at Maschine Masters as well. Subscribe to this channel if you're not a subscriber. Like the video, share on social media, all that good stuff. Hopefully you guys collected a few tips that help you in your machine workflow. And although a lot of this stuff is aimed for jam, especially the isomorph, the idea pad works for all the controllers. The Bass Synth is included in all the controllers, and the macros are assigned to the knobs instead of the strips. I don't know how they handled the glide automation though in the MK2 and Maschine Studio, so definitely check out the documentation on that. But anyway, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Have a good creative weekend ahead of you. Until next time.